Good evening, I'm Killian.
And I'm ZeroFoxGiven.
And today we have 4 unsolved missing person cases for you. You're listening to Dormal Talk. Heather Teague. In the 90s, a girl by the name of Heather Teague was sunbathing on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River near Evansville, Indiana. A witness was watching from across the river through his telescope. When out of the woods behind her, a man walked up, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her back to the woods. To this day, no one knows what happened to her.
I mean, you think there was other people on the beach? Like, how was the only person that saw the dude at the telescope away from it? Like, somebody's sunbathing and someone comes out of the woods and grabs you? Like, that's insane.
Maybe the dude with the telescope is actually the dude that did it, and he's just trying to throw the authorities off his scent.
I don't know if that would make sense, though. Like,
it's risky.
Yeah, but then to corroborate that and, like, I don't know. That's crazy. Because, I mean, you would have think that the authorities would find a way to verify that.
Yeah, he would have had to have an alibi.
Yeah, not to mention, I'm pretty sure that's probably the first thing they thought. So, like, not to mention they'd have to give him a polygraph test or something.
He would have to be the first suspect if he's the one with that kind of evidence and story.
And she still hasn't been found to this day. So, just for all of these stories, I'll post pictures and for details for everything. If you happen to know any information about these cases, I'll post links in the description or in the comments. Reach out to authorities if you could just give like any kind of hope to these families.
Rico Harris. Rico Harris, he was a massive 6'9" former Harlem Globetrotter basketball player who had drug issues earlier in his life, but he had made a full recovery and was getting his life back on track. He was driving along California's Interstate 5 from his hometown in Southern California to Seattle to live with his girlfriend. He was somewhere just north of Sacramento, exhausted, and told his girlfriend over the phone that he wanted to check out the mountains. All calls stopped since then. His car was found a couple days later by a patrolman near a rest stop in the mountains. A massive search was launched. No signs of him. The strangest part? A driver later reported seeing a massive 6'9" individual wandering down the highway just a mile from where the car was found. A week later, a search was relaunched. Massive size 17 footprints were found in the ground that were not there before. They were getting very close. And then, nothing. No trace, no body, nothing. Spooky on account of the footprints showing up a week later and him being spotted a week later in the same area. What happened?
I don't know. I feel like there might be more to that. What if the girlfriend didn't tell him everything that happened? What if they got into a fight and he just snapped and
went crazy to live in the woods?
That's still like kind of a stretch.
You would have to have a major emotional lapse.
I don't know. That's crazy. I can't even think of like what would cause that.
I mean, to your point, she calls him while he's on the way down, says don't come because I'm in love with somebody else. He doesn't know what to do with his life. He left everything he knows behind. He was totally banking on this move. Now he just, maybe, it says he was near a truck stop. Maybe he scored some drugs like he used to use earlier in his life.
That's right.
Had a hard relapse and just totally fried himself and started just doing things that only someone high off their mind on drugs could do.
I didn't even think of that. You're so right. It literally says that at the beginning.
And at the same time, why would a drug addict not stick around the same place where they scored drugs for about a week? If that's what happened, it kind of gives a reason to why he would have been there for a week.
I'm not saying that he would stick around per se, but what if he just didn't know a week had passed?
True, he didn't know a week had passed. Or, I mean, truck stops, you've been to truck stops, I've been to truck stops. They're hot spots for some tweaker type activity.
That's true. Like, yeah, I've driven around the country a few times, and yeah, it's interesting. That's crazy. Well, I don't know what to say, man. Like, that's insane.
Calico. On September 20th, 1988, in Belen, New Mexico, she went for her daily bike ride and never came back. Her mom actually used to accompany her on these rides, but stopped because she felt like she was being stalked by a driver. She tried to get Tara to carry mace, but Tara refused. That day, her mom set out to look for her along the trail and didn't find her, but pieces of her Walkman and a cassette tape. Several people saw Tara riding her bike, which had never been found, but no one witnessed her abduction, although they did see a light-colored pickup truck following her. On June 15, 1989, a Polaroid photo of a young woman and boy bound and gagged was found in a convenience store parking lot in Florida. The photo was thought to have been taken after May 1989 because the type of film was not available till then. Tara's mom thought the woman in the photo was Tara, given a similar scar on her leg from a car accident. The boy was thought to be missing Michael Henley, also of New Mexico, but that later proved to be untrue, as Henley's remains were later found in the forest a few miles from the campsite from which he had disappeared. More photographs have surfaced of a female bound and gagged, but they haven't been released to the public. The female in the photos has been suspected to be Tara, but the boy remains unidentified.
That one's interesting. Like, they never found the bike. The Walkman was smashed into pieces, and I don't know. I don't think I could let my kid go out on the bike ride if I felt that I was being stalked. I don't know. That's a weird one.
So I heard a podcast on this, and from what I remember, Tara wasn't like a high schooler. She was a little bit older, so, once you get a certain age, it's kind of hard to tell your kid, you can't go on a bike ride, even if she's living at home still.
You've never lived in a Mexican household, have you? Because if you still live at home, that makes no difference.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's crazy to think that maybe she ran off the road and fell off her bike, and maybe that's why her Walkman was smashed and then picked up from there.
Yeah, because, he could just throw the bike in the truck. Because, she did say that she felt like she was being stalked by a driver, and then they said a light-colored pickup. So it being a pickup truck would make sense as to why the bike itself was never found, because he took it.
And then, 2 years later, Polaroid, found in Florida.
Yeah, that's crazy, too, when you think about it, because that means that he kept her alive at least 2 years, at least 1 year, because it said 89, and she was abducted in 88. So that's insane. And then they still don't know who the boy is. You think it's like one of those where he kind of makes them their own family and keeps them prisoners?
Stockholm Syndrome thing?
I don't know if she ended up falling for him or anything. I'm just saying the fact that you think that he kept her alive instead of killing her?
I think that there's a lot of the country in between New Mexico and Florida, and the one thing I think that was tying Tara to this photo, because it says her mom believed it was her, but it doesn't really seem to be super widely accepted. I guess mothers know best, but I'm starting to think maybe this kid, the boy, got picked up somewhere along the way. Could have been from somewhere in Texas, Alabama, Georgia.
Could be. But he could have also been from New Mexico. And given the time, too, in the 80s, like we were talking about this with our the horror story, the fantasy one, where the guy pretended to be not friends with the guy, and then that made him the killer, the Perfect Plan story that we read. With how the times were, he probably could have gotten away with this easier. Like, it's just not as crazy as it is now.
Another point I remember from the podcast is there was some speculation that this particular photo was staged on account that you can't see the hands or the feet of either of them, so you don't know if they're really tied and bound or not. And also, they said maybe the expression on their face didn't look like they were in enough distress to have been like victims of a kidnapping, which I think if you're in someone's custody for 2 years, you might be less horrified and just more pissed, and I think she looks pretty pissed. But they do have a point. You can't see the hands or feet, so we have no idea what's really going on back there.
Either way, that's crazy.
However, there is a book here. Interesting, to say the least.
Could you make out what it says on the book?
It's known. It's been looked into, and I believe it's a book that Tara was known to have read. I can't see what it's called right now. We can maybe drop that in the description if you're interested on that particular literature.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The Yuba County 5, or the Yuba Incident. In 1978, 5 friends with intellectual disabilities ended up driving into the wilderness for no apparent reason, and 4 of their remains were later found there. One was extremely emaciated and had taken a long time to die in a ranger's cabin where food and other essentials were readily available. The others were outside, and not enough was found to determine how they died. They didn't leave, even though their truck was still functional.
So due to the interesting nature of this one, I'm keeping it in, but this read was just sloppy. And I don't mean like in your presentation of it. I'm talking about, the information on it. I get that they don't have much information, but the way that it was just structured was terrible.
I agree. I'm making the most of our source material. However, I do know this case to have some really actually interesting facts that work in conjunction with it that just were not mentioned or barely touched upon. The first being, these are 5 friends who lived in Yuba City and had known each other from like an adult school type situation because they all had disabilities, but they were all adults.
I actually used to work at a day program, so I know what you mean.
And one of them was high functioning, could drive. So one weekend they wanted to drive from Yuba to Chico, which is only about an hour, to see the Chico State basketball game, which it is confirmed they got to. And it wasn't until after that they had taken a wrong turn into the wilderness and never made it back to where they were supposed to go.
Gotcha. So they accidentally went there, not like how they just said for no reason.
Maybe accidentally. They were spotted after the basketball game at a gas station, and a woman had approached them with a baby, talking to them, and was seen to get in the car with them. So there's a theory that maybe she had led them somewhere, and they ended up in this national forest east of Chico where it was snowing at the time. Their car got stuck in the snow. Evidently, they had left the car on foot, found a ranger station, and tried to take shelter there, but the details are hairy.
I'm both intrigued and disturbed that you know more about this off the top than the stupid article did about all of it, because literally all of that could be speculation. The thing at the end ends by saying that they don't know anything to like speculate on, but you have all this extra information.
Well, I have...
Actually, hold on, folks. I'm going to call 911 right now. He's responsible. I'm kidding, of course. Yeah, no, that's a joke.
Shouts out Crime Junkie. That's my excellent source for this one. But yeah, this is quite the gnarly one. Why some random woman would want to take 5 guys with learning disabilities out into the freezing wilderness and...
Money?
If they had any.
Well, I mean, she doesn't know that at the time. If you're trying to swindle someone, you don't think, these people don't have money, I'm just going to leave them alone. You're going to try to swindle them and get whatever you can.
But I feel like that must have been a swindling gone wrong, because how do they end up where they do? Maybe she just got in the car, told them to drive, didn't really know where they were going, waiting for a moment to try and make something happen. Before she knew it, they were out in the cold.
No, I'll do you one better. Like, just based off what you've told me mixed with that freaking story that isn't that great, they drove out to the cabin because she told them that. Mind you, these are 5 guys, so they picked up a woman. They might think, oh, like, maybe she likes me, maybe something could happen right there. She leads them to the cabin where she has people there to jump them, to take their stuff. Like, they couldn't determine on how these people died because there wasn't enough of them left, and they said that there was like food and stuff in the cabin that they were at. I mean, there had to be somebody there dealing with it.
I mean, it's possible. It was a ranger's cabin, although it wasn't used because it was winter. So it was not abandoned, just not used. But it's very possible that a local knew of the place and thought it would be the perfect place to make something like that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, it has all the markings of it being like a crime. And I wouldn't even say gone wrong, just probably not as lucrative as they wanted to. And then again, going off speculation, plot twist, 1 was never found, which is the reason why this is a missing person that's unsolved. But I mean, what if he was in on it? I mean, high functioning people still work, like, we don't know exactly what their disabilities were, do we? Because, if they're like on the Asperger's autism scale, he could be really smart.
Well, actually, you'll have to do a little bit more of your own research, because the varying levels of disabilities are addressed. And the one of them that had appeared, or the one of them that was never found, was the one that would have had the most survival skills due to time in the
Mind you,
war.
I've never heard about this story. I just speculated off that.
Yep, that's very true. So
it's another reason why I'm mad about that article that we just read. Thank you for joining us on Dormal Talk. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be at you with another episode soon. And as always, have a wonderful day.